I'm Gary Birtles, one of the old gits from a long time ago. You've got to tune into Tricky Talks, I believe, so just do it. All the best.
Robertson, the first time we've seen them attack them, and there's Francis! Well, that's what I wanted to see Robertson do. And still Robertson, getting his shot in, and a goal! Robertson!
Hello, welcome along to the Tricky Talks podcast as Forest avoid being gunned down by Arsenal and grab a much needed and well-deserved point. We'll talk about that and look forward to the last away European adventure of the group stage with a trip to Portugal. All of that is coming up, of course, but first, hello, the whole gang is here. Chels, how are you?
Yes, I'm good, thank you. It was good to see a good performance the other night. So, yeah, onwards and upwards.
And Kate is here also. How are you, Kate?
Yeah, I'm good. It feels like a long time ago now, and now I'm sort of stuffing things in rucksacks and checking my passport. But yeah, still really enjoying the aftermath of that game and the feeling of getting a well-deserved point, like you said.
And last but not least, Mollo is here to bask in the glory of that point also. How are you, sir?
Some saltiness with them. It's been a beautiful couple of days.
Indeed. We'll get into the Arsenal game in a moment, but first wanted to go through a little bit of news that's been cropping up over the last couple of days. Let's start with an Arsenal man, actually, in Zinchenko, seems to be on his way out of the club, in that Ajax are rumoured to be finalising a deal to take him on loan for the rest of the season. What do you guys make of that? I don't think it's a surprise, is it? He hasn't really fitted in or made much of an impact, so it does open up another loan spot in the squad, as we will go on to in a moment. But disappointed he's going, Mollo, or fair enough?
It's fair enough, isn't it? We talked about it quite a bit, didn't we, on the last show when he was on his sick bed, that he's clearly a very good player, but he's not the right player for us as our left back. He's got the wrong attributes to be our effective left back. Probably could have done a job in midfield while we needed him over the period, maybe, but definitely not. I wish him well and good luck to him. He's a good player, and perhaps he'll suit their way of playing far better.
Yeah, like you say, he's not really fitted into the squad from day one, has he? He's also had a few injury problems, Kate, hasn't he? So he's not, to be fair, he's not really had a decent enough chance to solidify that left back or full back spot, has he, really?
I think he's had enough chances. With the number of times we've played him versus the performances. I agree with everything Mollo said. I'm not saying he's a bad footballer. Clearly he's not. He has a degree of pedigree, but it wasn't working at Forest. It was never going to work at Forest. After Wrexham, I think we would have collectively all booked the Uber for him, wouldn't we? So, yeah, good luck. Off you pop.
Yeah, nothing against the chap, really, Chelsea, is it? But as I said, it does open up another spot in the squad, really, for somebody else, and an opportunity for improving the squad in another position, shall we say, rather than letting somebody just rot away in the. Well, he wasn't quite the bomb squad material, but let's face it, he wasn't going to play much, was he?
No, and that's the thing. Again, like we were all saying, he's not a bad footballer, but at the end of the day, the shoe didn't fit, did it? And that's, wrong on our part. He just didn't go with how we work as a squad and as a team, and we wish him all the best in wherever he goes, but like you said, it does give an opportunity for someone else to come in who does fit in with the squad, and that's exactly what we would need right now, halfway through the season.
Now, there is a player who is rumoured to be mulling over a deal with his club, having agreed a loan transfer with a view to buy, and that is Lorenzo Luca, or I don't know how you pronounce his name. Luca, you're the Italian. You've got an Italian in your family, Mollo. Is it Luca or Luca?
No clue. I'm just going to call him Bob.
Bob,
yeah,
at the moment,
yeah.
then, until we're told otherwise. Yeah, he is a very tall striker. Certainly seems to be fitting the profile of what they're looking for. Now, I don't know whether you guys have heard about this, but He's currently with Udinese, but on loan to Napoli. So Udinese is his parent club, and he's got a bit of a reputation for being a bit of a bad boy. There was an incident last year where Udinese got a penalty. He was not the designated penalty taker, yet he insisted on taking the penalty. His teammates told him, no, you're not taking the penalty. His captain told him, no, you're not taking the penalty. Even the opposition players got involved and said, look, your team don't want to take your penalty. His manager told him he's not taking the penalty, but he wasn't having any of it at all. And he took the penalty and he scored, and he ran away in celebration and wondered why none of his teammates went to celebrate with him. And then 4 minutes later, he got substituted. So is that the sort of character that you would want coming to the team? Mollo, start with you, because whilst he may or may not, we don't know yet, end up scoring the goals we all crave, has he got the right character to fit in this squad?
I'm going to say it sounds a bit ropey. However, I don't know how old he is either, so whether he was still relatively inexperienced. But what I will say, one thing we really do need is somebody in that 6-yard box who will kick their own granny to score a goal. And if he will upset his teammates to score a goal, who knows? I'm being positive because, you know me, when we sign a player, I always say I wait to see him play. So I didn't go nuts about the players we signed in the summer, thank goodness, as some people have now gone the other way with them. But we need a striker, and it's not we need a striker to help Jesus, not replace him. I think Jesus is a terrific player. I can see now why he's played a number of his games behind a big man, and maybe that's the thinking. I have no clue. Maybe he's not only is he big, but he might have a bit of movement in the box. I believe he's not scored many goals this year, but he got 14 last year. Sounds familiar, the Wolves guy. And is it right? £1 million loan fee with a view to 35 million, depending on whatever. In the Premier League, as stupid as that sounds, that's a small change, isn't it? So it's a gamble, but it's worth the gamble, I think, if that's the player that's been identified by the right people. We'll see.
Well, that's the next question I was going to raise, actually. Is it just another Edu signing again? And he's not got a good track record so far. Can we really put faith in this player being the solution up front, Kate?
Yeah, I did the same thing. I looked at the stats and it said 1 goal in 16 appearances. I was like, oh, he sounds perfect. But since then, I have heard some better things about him. I have heard some people saying that certainly he was decent last season. I feel like it's a bit of deja vu. We've already mentioned that he's tall. That's important. I said that last time about Strand Larsen. It's always going to be with a player like that. Let's be honest. We don't know loads about him. I don't know many people that know loads about him. You hear his name, you have a quick Google, you have a look. I'm hoping that the powers that be have done a little bit more of a deep dive than that, and they're fairly confident that he's got something to offer. In terms of the attitude, that is absolutely on the management team, isn't it? They're going to have to manage that. Like you say, the thing that I took from that story was that he scored the penalty. So,
Imagine if he'd have missed.
So, I think at this point, we're all just desperate to see somebody coming in that can potentially score us some goals. And if they're telling us that's this guy, then let's hope they're right.
But with the whole, how his attitude is and everything, do you remember when everyone was saying that about when we saw Jed Spence from Middlesbrough? Everyone was saying, he's trouble, he's a nuisance, he's got attitude. And then, Cooper gave the right arm around him and then he did transform. So maybe, that could work the same way. You never know.
I wonder if he's a cross between... Should we nickname him Bob Van Hooijdonk, Mollo? Because I think you called him Bob after Robert Rosario, did you? Or did you not?
No, just random.
All right,
I thought it was better than calling him Bob Excellency, that was all.
You remember back in 92, 93, they signed Rosario as the striker to save Forest from relegation.
Big
and
bad
everyone
Bob.
got wind of this striker, and it turned out to be Robert Rosario, who scored probably 1 goal, I think, in that season. And then you have Van Hooijdonk, who famously went on strike and didn't have any of his teammates celebrate with him either. So maybe this is Bob Van Hooijdonk Mark II, perhaps. We'll see. But anyway,
a goal scorer, but he wasn't a bad player.
Yeah.
For us in the Championship, to be fair.
Yeah. Talking of decent players, another player that's got linked today, Chelsea, was Harry Wilson, Fulham. I didn't realise he was out of contract at the end of the season, and he's been linked with Forest and Everton amongst others today. Do you think he's somebody that could help the team given this form for Fulham? Or is it more of a case of he's playing well because it's Fulham?
I think he's a great player anyway, but it is that thing of just take anything that we can get at the moment, isn't it? Well, I say that. It's more that we need someone to actually do something with it, and score goals would be fantastic. But I don't think necessarily it is just because he was at Fulham. I think if you're a great player, you can, play great in any team. You've just got to, be able to kind of pick your place and work well within a team. But, I think that would be an absolutely great signing, to be honest, as long as he could just score goals and give us something. No one in 16 or 19 appearances, though. I don't want that.
20 now.
Yeah, we'll see. One player who has departed was Jamie McDonnell, who halted his loan move at Mansfield and has signed a permanent deal with Oxford, which sounds a good deal for himself and the two clubs involved, so we wish him well, of course. Never made an appearance for the first team, but sounds like he could still have a promising career ahead of him, so we wish him well. And let's move on to Arsenal then. Great point. I thought we were all very chuffed at the end. Backs to the wall job for a lot of the game, as we would have expected anything different, to be honest. But start with you, Mollo. What were your thoughts? I think the first word you uttered after the game was "few."
Yeah, absolutely. Because it's that thing psychologically, isn't it? When you're there watching it, you feel like, and you've got that aura about there. Every time the only time you ever heard the Arsenal fans was every time they got a corner. It was literally every time they got a corner they sang, and every time they got a corner, you thought, "Oh no, here we go." But then, everyone watched the game, but I watched it back on TV knowing they weren't going to score, and actually watching it, we had them at arm's length, we defended superbly, they didn't trouble us much. Even when they did trouble us, it was either from an error, and ironically, I can't believe I'm saying this, I was so glad they didn't score, and Nico Williams dropped a clanger, and then they put it in the box for the header. But the couple of chances they did create, out of our mistakes mainly, they didn't put away when they had the chance, and Sells was equal to it. And the one at the back post was an absolute fluke where the guy shot ricocheted and went through the box, and there had two players at the back post. So I'm really glad Martinelli missed that. I actually thought it was a back to basics display, and I know people gone about Dyche ball and all this, but watching it back, and at the time I remember thinking it, we had two or three really good moments where a better touch would have put us in with a really good chance. So the obvious one being the two on the edge of the box where Morgan didn't quite get his shot off properly. There was three on the edge of the box, but two were pretty good chances, but not really clear cut. But the real one was when, and by then he'd already run 2 marathons, I think. Dominguez was kind of put through, and his first touch just got ahead of him, and he would have been clean through, and certainly could have got his shot off or squared it or whatever. So, although we didn't trouble their keeper, part of that was not great shooting, and part of that was that last, it wasn't even the last pass this time, it was that last bit of control kind of let us down, which happens when you're down there. But overall, it was a back to basic, do your job. Jesus ran his socks off with almost no reward at all. Absolutely brilliant. What we needed, not one person in that ground supporting Forest wouldn't have took a point before kick-off. I think I wrote something on one of the sites about, my predicted score, we're probably going to struggle, but if everyone plays as they can, having Aina back, having two best centre-backs back, I think it was after the Chelsea game, I said we've got a better defence than them, and if our goalkeeper doesn't do what their goalkeeper did, we could maybe keep a clean sheet. I couldn't see us scoring, and we didn't. So it just panned out as I kind of hoped it would without maybe nicking a goal. So, to a man, they were superb. I'll sit here and defend anybody who starts slating Morgan Gibbs-White, because he ran every blade of grass. Every blade of grass. And then the few times he got the ball, up in right up there, the guy would probably just run about 600 metres in the last minute to get there. So it's not surprising he wasn't at his very best on the ball. But what he did do, he retained possession mostly really well. Apart from when he gave it away, obviously, or lost it. But he was getting moaned at for not being quicker on the ball a couple of times. And where we sit looking across in the first half, there was nothing to aim at in the box. And I mean nothing. Or he could swing in a hopeful cross where Jesus was being marked by both their defenders, which is pointless because we know how that ends. So he just turned back inside and started again. And on that day, I don't mind that. I get because Everton are so good. But that's how I see it. Really positive outcome. Now, build on it. Starting on Thursday.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. It was great having a defensive performance, but it was almost like they were focusing so much on getting that part of the game plan right that it meant kind of not deliberately neglecting going forwards, but it meant they had to sacrifice that a bit of offensive philosophy, Kate. Do you see what I mean there? Because, like Mollo said, they were never going to score many against Arsenal at all. They're the best defence in the Premier League, maybe the best defence in the world. So the focus had to be on keeping them out at the other end, didn't it? And they got the game plan spot on in the end.
Yeah, and it did feel like that watching it. It did feel like scoring a goal was kind of like, well, you know, if you really get the chance, then. But mostly it felt like the game plan was to keep them out, and it worked. And for me, the thing that I loved the most about it was the level of performance. You know, the absolute heart that they were showing, which is what we've asked of them. It's what we've challenged them to do. You know, it's what Daesh challenged them to do in his post-match after Wrexham. You know, to play for the badge. And you know, I've said this a lot, but for me as a Forest fan, that is all I want to see. And if we'd have come away from that and we hadn't got a point, I would have been gutted because I'd have felt we deserved one. And you know, we can come on to the penalty, the penalty shout in a little while. But mostly what I wanted to see was exactly what I saw, which was everybody giving everything that they had, leaving it out on the pitch, gritty, deserving, all of those things. And that is exactly what we saw. And if they do that, I go home happy. I go home proud as a Forest fan. And the thing that was really telling for me in that was the noise in the stadium. So we did Mull of Kintyre and that was good. And then there was a bit of, you know, the songs at the beginning, and then it did die off a little bit. But in the second half, we could really feel the effort, and we could actually start to feel a little bit of confidence as well, that we were doing really good. And that's when the singing really started to spread around the ground, and you thought, hang on a minute, this is the City ground, now we're bouncing. And I think all of those things combined just made it an absolutely great night. I was very happy.
You could hear it like through the TV, Kate. Like it was, the fans were loud and clear. And me and Dad have always spoke about that. We've watched it on the TV, how quiet, you know, it has been compared to last season. And when I was watching it and I could hear it all, I got goosebumps because it was like, yeah, we're back. It was just one of them feelings of like, yeah, they needed that and we needed that. So yeah, it was. You could hear it loud and clear.
Sorry.
No,
I think as well it's worth mentioning that I'd kind of forgotten by the end of the game, because the last 10 minutes seemed to last hours, how well we played in that 10 or 15 minutes before and after half time, where we were the better side. And I'd completely not forgotten it, but I was like coming out of the stadium. I don't think I've ever been so knackered from a football match without actually playing in it. I was absolutely mentally drained. But that was, you know, that 10 minutes before half time and bit after half time, we were the better side, and we didn't create much, but we had half chance. You know, I always say it, he's the best player at keeping the ball, and if he had another couple of yards of pace, he wouldn't be a Forest player. It's just so unfortunate that Callum hasn't got that extra yard of pace when the ball was played through. It was a good tackle, and he was right to pull out of it. Absolutely right. I've heard people saying, "Oh, why did he slow down?" If he slows down, he gets smashed by a psycho goalkeeper instead in at best a 50-50. So yeah, I think it was an excellent performance. We didn't outplay them for much of the game, but we did outplay them at times. But we outfought them, that's for sure.
I know the commentators made reference to the back five being solid, and in an ideal world, that will be the back five now for the rest of the season. But what difference did Sangare coming back make? Because I thought he had, and you're laughing, Mollo, so we'll come to you. But I think he did make another. He did make a difference, didn't he?
Right. Here's what I'm going to say. First of all, in our last pod, the team he picked was the exact team I wanted to see. Do you remember I said we can't go out with two wingers against them. We need Dominguez to hold up a side, and I would bring Sangare straight back in. That was, first of all, in my defence. We've now seen 2 games on the trot for us, albeit a month apart. Sangare look like the player we thought we'd sign. We
Yep.
destroyed Spurs, who were garbage, and he looked really good that day, as did everyone. But he did what you want your big number 6 to do almost all through the game. Yes, he doesn't mark a player very often in midfield. He sort of drifts around and marks the ref. He picks up running lines better now. He seems to have adjusted more. But and everyone will have noticed this. He actually sprints now. He doesn't just lollop. Do you see when he made a couple of forward runs, didn't he? And also, I mean, he got done by Rice a couple of times. Got left by Rice, who put that cross in for the header they nearly scored from, and a couple of others. That's going to happen against a player of Rice's quality. But for once, Rice didn't look throughout the best midfielder on the pitch. And that was down to Sangare helping nullify him. And that's what you've got to do with Arsenal, because he is their fulcrum of everything, isn't he? And Sangare did a superb job. He was tidy on the ball. He even kind of won a header where he kind of got up at his 6'4" frame, managed to get up to 6'5", and he kind of half won the header. Fair play. That sounds like I'm begrudging, but no, he played really, really well. And to answer your question, having said all that, justified it, it made a big difference in terms of physical presence. And albeit that Yatesy was on the bench, but up until recently, who else have we got? You know,
Yeah.
Dominguez has been absolutely superb. If Dominguez plays against Arsenal, we've got no Sangare. Then what do you do out wide? Because there's nobody with the reliability and work rate and an incredible everything Dominguez does to be able to do the job the way he did it. So yeah, in answer to it, made us a better team, and he makes Anderson a better player sometimes as well, because Anderson ended up being the best midfielder on the pitch. If you don't count Hudson-Odoi, if you see what I mean.
He's becoming almost automatic on the team sheet now, isn't he? I know he's missed a month through AFCON, but we've seen the difference he makes before and immediately after. So you'd have him in your team, Chelsea, wouldn't you, I guess, week in, week out now, until proven otherwise?
Oh yeah, I would, and I've got my dad in my ear as well about Sangare. He even said to me, before you go on the pod tonight, he went, tell Mollo I love Sangare.
Can I just say, if he carries on playing like he has done the last couple of games, consistently, then I'll love him too. Don't worry about that. But I still, I still remember your Brighton and your West Ham and your Everton away, and the games where he was just a big lump who disappeared out of the game. Now, don't get me wrong, everybody's entitled to a bad game. Consistency now, that's what we're looking for, isn't it?
Yeah.
And it's starting to show.
Yeah, and that's the thing, because I literally I'd wrote down exactly what you'd said, that he makes Anderson a better player. And I think as well, equally, Sangare allows Anderson to do his job in midfield while just acting like as a support to him as well, which I think is brilliant. But with Sangare, he's got a calmness about him, and he just seems a lot more settled in the team, playing on the pitch, and I just think that he is just growing as a player. And yeah, for me, I personally would have him starting.
Oh yeah.
Want to pick up on something Mollo said around Declan Rice. I was thinking Brian Rice when you were talking about Rice.
Zico.
But, yeah. Now, he certainly impacted Rice's game, and that made me think, well, Kate, was it the whole performance? I put in the show notes, were Arsenal bad or were Forest good? I think it's probably somewhere in between, because the game did go the way we'd expected in terms of most of the ball possession being with Arsenal, but they never looked like scoring, did they, as we've said. So do you think it was a case of Arsenal not playing up to their usual standard, or were Forest playing above their standard, do you think? Or
I don't think Arsenal love coming to the City Ground, and I think that is in there somewhere. You know, that it's a mixed bag for them, but I don't think they love it. And you know, we've spoken before about the idea of Forest historically doing better against the bigger teams, and why that might be. And there are lots of theories as to why that might be. What I have accused Forest of, and did so in the Wrexham games, is a little bit of complacency. And I do wonder if there was a little bit of complacency in Arsenal, you know, coming to us and thinking that it was going to be easy and they were going to be all over us. And then they weren't. And they weren't because we were good. because the game plan worked, because we managed them well, and also because all the players, I genuinely think, did everything at 100%. You know, they gave it all, and whatever the reason for that is, I am absolutely there for it. So Arteta's great at having a moan, isn't he? He's great, isn't he? Arsenal, I'm so sad, there must be a reason. And I think that is potentially echoed in some of his players, because, you know, he's their leader, and that tends to be his attitude. So I think we were great, and I really enjoyed watching them hate it.
Do you remember that clip from a few years ago when Arsenal lost in the Cup after wearing that all-white strip, and there was a camera in the away dressing room of Arteta was effing and blinding for about 10 or 15 minutes? Do you guys remember that?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah, it was almost not quite the same thing this week, but one of the main controversial talking points was, of course, the handball, in inverted commas, from Olorena. And I at the time, I was a little bit worried, if I was honest with you, and don't know what you thought, Chelsea. Looking at the replay, the ball was clearly, in the field of play, and his arm was coming over it, and I was fearing the worst. Now, as it happens, VAR went in our favour, and it got checked and cleared quite quickly. And Sean Dyche has come out and said, "Look, if that's a penalty, you've got to cancel football." But what do you guys think? Start with you, Chelsea, because you were watching it on telly like I was. Would you have cancelled football had that been given as a penalty?
No, I definitely would have cancelled football, because what would I do at the weekend? But I can't even tell you what I was watching it somewhere else, and I can't repeat what I texted to my dad. I thought it was a penalty when I saw that replay first. I really did. And I remember saying to Dean, if it does go our way, then Anderson has cleverly positioned himself maybe in the position to appear that he was almost giving Aina a little shove in the back. But it's one of them ones, it could have gone either way, but I think that it got played very well, and actually VAR went in our favour. For God, we can actually count up to on one hand now that it has done.
Yeah, what was it like in the stadium, guys? Because was it tense at that point? Because it was quite near the end of the game as well, wasn't it?
Thinking about where we sit, right in line with it, I thought Anderson handballed it first as well when he came across, and then when it went out for a corner, I was saying, that's a penalty. We're in trouble here. That's going to be a penalty. When they started looking at it, I was like, oh, woe is me. We've done all this work and we're going to lose it because of a stupid penalty. But having seen it all back and everything else, like everybody else, the problem here is the rule is a farce. Now, it wasn't a penalty according to the weird rules that they've put in place for handball. But to me, I'm so glad it wasn't. It's a penalty all day long back in the day. And then they've got to do something about this stupid rule. And for me, the rule needs to be adjusted massively and stop doing this. What was it? I can't remember. We got away with it because the rule said something like not away from his body and blah, all that rubbish, and under pressure from Anderson. Ultimately, they need to make it like, I've said this before, like in hockey. You know, we play hockey. If the ball hits your foot, accidentally or not, it's a free hit or whatever it is. They need to do that in football. If it hits your arm, okay, there's going to be a debate about where it hits you on the arm, I get that. But if it hits your arm, it's a penalty. That's what they need to do. But, all the Arsenal fans thinking, oh, he's taking our side, if they do listen to us. Ultimately, as far as the current rule goes at the Premier League and whatever they call PJMOL and rubbish, don't know what we're doing, it's not a penalty. Simple as that. If it was at the other end, it wouldn't have been a penalty, and I'd be raging about the stupidness of the rule again.
No,
apparently
something's just popped up on my phone, and the headline is former PGMOL chief demands ref suspension after controversial Arsenal penalty decision.
Who was that? Because all the other refs that I've read about in the media and also the Ref Watch today, every one of them has explained why it isn't a penalty according to the stupid rules. Admittedly, we've been on the wrong end of plenty of those.
Yeah.
And all I keep thinking back is to when Ola Aina at Newcastle did that, and it hit his elbow and they gave a penalty, albeit we got hammered that day.
That's what I mean. There's too much of a grey area now. with with handballs and stuff. It's like, oh yes, no, maybe, well, I don't know, VAR, no. It's just it's too much now. The rules should be as clear as anything, and they're not, and it's just that's why everything is just being all up in the air.
Nobody knows the rules either, do they?
No.
All these
exactly.
salty Arsenal fans crying all the last couple of days online, going on and on and on about blatant penalty, blah blah. We're so victims, and all that stuff. They just don't know what the rule is, and I get it because they keep changing it.
Yeah.
But the rule, as it stands, it isn't a penalty, which shows how stupid the rule is. It's like booting someone in the head and saying, "Oh, we've changed the rule. If you didn't catch him with your studs, it's no longer a foul," kind of thing. Do you know what I mean? It's just a ridiculous rule. It should have been a penalty, but it isn't because of the daft rules. And that's it. End of debate. Shut up, Arsenal. You messed it up. You're 7 points clear. Cry somewhere else.
Somebody who also doesn't know the rules was former PGMOL chief Keith Hackett, who demands the suspension of referee Darren England and VAR official Micah Oliver. There you go. See, on the one hand, you have a former PGMOL chief, Keith Hackett, saying it was a penalty. On the other hand, you have Sean Dyche saying, Kate, that if it is a penalty, you've got to cancel football. So
is that definitely about this penalty, though? Because Oliver wasn't the VAR official, was he?
Yeah,
that England bloke was.
Yeah, it's definitely talking about this particular game. But I think Sean Dyche was probably going a little bit far, wasn't he? Around saying you have to cancel football, but you get the point he was trying to make.
I do get the point he was trying to make, and I absolutely loved that clip. I shared it on Instagram because I thought that's fantastic. Go on, go on. I love it. I think it's great. The Arsenal fans are really, really sad. They're really, really angry. They're like, oh, we couldn't beat you. We needed that soft penalty, and we didn't get it, and that's why. Tough luck, sitting up there with 7 points clearing you big six Palace. Tough luck.
Tell you what, though.
We outdid you. We got the point. End of conversation. It wasn't a penalty. It wasn't given on the day. Most of the stuff that I've seen, since says it wasn't a penalty. Aina does get kicked in the chest right before. That's got to be in there. Yeah, you're right, Chelsea. Anderson kind of bundles into him a little bit, so there's an argument that he's using his arm for balance. That's in there. Do you know what? I don't even care. I don't care why it's not a penalty. I'm just glad it wasn't a penalty because I'm not in line with it, so I couldn't see what was happening. I just saw the thing flash up on the screen to say penalty check and did exactly what you did, Molly, and thought, oh, fantastic, we've done it. That's exactly what I knew was going to happen. And it was like, not this. Brilliant.
I'm so glad you said fantastic there, Kate, and not another
that's
word.
not what you said at the time.
Yeah. At that point I was praying it was going to finish 0-0 because we all knew that was a great point at that time of the game, but also because I had double Arsenal defence, which got me 2 clean sheets
Same.
in FPL, which we'll come on to in a moment.
Same, and I had the keeper. Just going back to your point about whether we were good or they were bad, I think as well, in the interest of balance, we have to say, how glad am I that Saka didn't play the whole game? Because he is some player, isn't he? And how glad am I that it was... Because Madueke's pretty sharp as well. How glad am I that Nico was on his, on his case as well? Because it was terrifying in those last 10 minutes, the number of real quality crosses he was putting in. He's some talent, isn't he, Saka? I wish he was a Forest player.
Yeah, I was glad.
And that's the reason he wasn't starting, obviously, is they're fighting on 4 fronts. They had that big game against Chelsea. They presumably got, I'm guessing, Champions League this week. So they're rotating their squad. And as good as the players are that they brought in, none of them is Saka, are they? Because he is incredible.
But that's what I was saying when I was watching the game. You've got us playing Arsenal, who, like you said, they're 7 points clear at the top of the table. And they bring on Saka and Eze. Brilliant. All right then, and we still get a point from that.
And
but
Marino,
still,
he's decent.
Yeah, exactly. But they still can't give us the credit, though, can they? It's always the fluky. No, of course they won't. No.
I think had they brought on Dan Marino instead of Carlos Marino, I think they probably would have won. Anyway, on to Mollo's moment then, Mollo. Sorry.
Oh, that's an easy one. Very easy. Although there were lots of contenders like the great saves, the final whistle, and I know we're going to come to man of the match later, and I might upset Kate on that one, but when right in front of A Block, that Mardy Gabriel Jesus was doing something with the ball, and Nico came over with Anderson, and they smashed him. old-fashioned phrase into Rosette. I wish it had been Rosette because it'd been behind me. But anyway, and to round it off, it was proper old-school tackle. It was never a free kick in a million years. I know it's doing the rounds on social media now, and he was practically crying, and they just buried him and got on with it. I thought, yeah. Nico Williams, I think he made quite a bad mistake not long before that they nearly scored from. It was almost like, okay, I've made a mistake, I'm going to make up for it this way as well. I'm not only going to stop you, I'm going to smash you into Rosette. Absolutely brilliant. And it raised the whole crowd, not just A Block or the cheap seats next to us. Also, probably the whole ground was roaring when he got. It wasn't just a tackle; it was a proper. It was Stuart Pearce-esque almost. It was that good and fair, which I'm glad tackling's still in the game, and it raised the whole crowd definitely.
Excellent. I was going to, talking of Gabriel Jesus, I was thinking is that the first time there have ever been two Jesuses on the pitch at the same time?
Yeah.
In the Premier
League? Team, in the Premier League, yeah.
I
was desperately trying to think of a Jesus joke from a show notes on the opening intro, but time got the better of me in the end, so couldn't quite manage it. You'll be pleased to know, Mollo.
Good job Rob Jones wasn't refereeing.
What?
90s indie band reference there, Jesus Jones.
Right, on to the man of the matches then. We'll start with you, Kate. Who's your man of the match this week?
In the middle of our goal, got to be Matt Sells for me.
Yeah, go on, Chelsea.
Matt Sells, definitely.
Yeah, Mollo.
I keep flip flopping, but I'm going to go. It was a return to form for Sells. It was the Sells we all know and love, and one of those saves is incredible. I can't look further than Dominguez, amongst loads of contenders for similar things, but all four midfielders include, Hudson-Odoi, all five back four. But if I've got to pick one, I'm going Dominguez.
Yeah, I'm going to make it 3 for Matt Sells because I thought, unlike Gabriel Jesus, he was great on crosses. Right, let's moving swiftly on. Let's go to the quiz, Kate, shall we, please?
Oh, okay, yeah. So I don't know whether you're going to find this incredibly easy or a little bit tricky. So I am looking for players who have played for both Nottingham Forest and Braga, one of whom is currently in our squad.
Oh, God, that's true. Can't be too many, surely.
Wow. That is not easy.
Right, well, we're going to need a few minutes to think about that one, of course. Okay,
Yeah.
whilst we wait and think, shall we go on to the FPL update, Chelsea?
Yes. Right. Well, we've all had quite a good week, I did see. Not a great week in terms of points, but we're all, on our leaderboard. We're all right. So, Mollo, you've gone up to 11th. You had 43 points this week, so that's all right, but you've still gone up a place. And Kate, I can... that's it, but you've still gone up. That's what I mean. We've done quite bad on points, me in particular, but we've all, bar me, have gone up a place, but I've kept level. So, Kate, I'm very pleased to say that you have gone up a place. It may only be one, Kate, but you've gone up to 28th now. And you got 52 points this week. Simon, you've gone back up to 7th. I think that's the highest that you've been so far this season, is 7th. So, yes, you've got that. And then me, I kept in 21st place, but I only got 39 points. It was a really poor week from me, and I'm not going to lie, I'm disappointed in myself. But I was having a little look at the top goal scorers this week. What have I got to do? Am I too loud?
No, that was the world's smallest violin, Chelsea, and it was playing just for you.
Oh! I thought you were telling me to turn my mic down. I was like, where's the setting? Sorry. Yeah, no, I know. I'm really disappointed in myself, and I must try harder, like my school report always said. But, yeah, so I was having a little look at the highest scorers this week. You had Dogu with 15, followed by Sanchez with 11. And I would just like to say that our keeper, Matt Sells, got a lovely 10 points, who I did not have in my team. Have any of you got Sells in goal?
No.
No, I played the long game. I did have Raya, though.
Oh, okay. How many did he score?
Oh, we got a clean sheet, didn't he? So I don't know. I haven't looked at my team at all. I'm just trying to get it up now to have a nosy.
I feel like he got 6, maybe, because he was
Yeah,
on my bench. I very nearly bench boost, but then I didn't.
Ooh.
But then I took it off because was it Gay that moved? And I thought,
Yeah.
I thought they're not playing, so I don't want to. So I cancelled that, but I did.
Well, I've just had a look, Kate. You would have scored 11 on your bench boost if you had have played it.
Yeah, well, I mean, that's not.
So.
Your fault. As soon as I saw that happen, I thought you'll not play because it was like the day before, wasn't it? So I cancelled it.
Yeah.
I haven't
Raya
played
only
any of
scored
my new
6.
chips. Oh. I haven't played any of my chips yet for this second half of the season. Is anybody else?
No, way too early for that sort of stuff. You've got to wait for your blanks and your double game weeks, Chelsea. Things like
Says
that.
the wizard.
Look.
But yes, I'm just going to say the top of our leaderboard is still Liam Boland. He's got 1,310 points already. And then at the bottom we still again have Stephen Brown with 933 points. So that is the FPL update for this week.
Cool, thanks, Chelsea. Games come quick and thick and fast, of course, and Forest are travelling for their last away European adventure of the group stage. Hopefully it won't be their last full stop of this European campaign, but they are travelling to Portugal to play Braga. Braga themselves have a world ranking of 3rd. To compare that with Forest, who are 61st. The continental ranking in UEFA are 55th and Forest are 54th. The national ranking is currently 4th. In the Portuguese league this season to date, they're currently in 5th position. They've played 18, won 8, drawn 6, lost 4, scored 32, conceded 18, got 30 points. So as I said, they're currently in 5th, but their home form isn't the greatest. They're only, if you rank teams based on home form only, they're 9th, where they've won 4, drawn 2, lost 2, scored 14, conceded 7 at home. Their recent form overall, though, is pretty impressive. They've only lost 1 of their last 10, and they've won 5 of their last 6. So they're in a decent run of form. In the Europa League itself, they're currently sat 7th in the overall league table, having won 4, drawn 1, lost 1 of their 6 games. They've scored 10, conceded 5, sit, as I say, 7th on 13 points. Notable games they've won so far against Feyenoord, Celtic and Nice, whereas they have lost at home 3-4 to Genk. So they seem to be on a pretty decent run of form, and as you said earlier, Mono, Forest have got to beat these kind of teams anyway if they want to progress in the competition. So it's going to be almost like a double whammy, isn't it? If they can manage to grab a win, not only is it going to help them qualify, hopefully in a top 8 position, but they're going to overtake Braga if they do manage to win away from home, something which they have only done once in Utrecht so far this season. So bit of a tall order, Molo. What are your initial thoughts?
Sorry, I'm writing down all the Portuguese players I can think of that played for Forest and trying to remember if they played for Braga. Sorry. I wouldn't say it's a tall order normally, but after Wrexham, I feel like it is, because he's going to go strong against Brentford, of course. If we have the 2 clowns at centre-back, then I'm nervous. The only thing I would say, we do potentially have one thing back that's going to be in our favour. And Yatesy was on the bench at the weekend, so I'd like to think he'll be starting in midfield. Worryingly, probably so will Louise, whatever his name is, Louise. It's a game we've got to go out and try and win at the end of the day, and if you don't win, don't lose. I'll be interested to see who's going to go in goal, though. Because surely Angus Gunn gets a game. That said, goalkeepers are different, aren't they? All you're doing is risking injury rather than tiredness. So he might go with Sells again because he seems to be finding his form, doesn't he? And obviously the young Italian will be back in. Don't know who will be left back now. I think here's a question. I'm sure one of you'll know this. I don't, because we have changed our European squad slightly, haven't we?
Yeah, Ayla's in for Zinchenko.
And that's the only change. So
make any changes until the group stages have been completed. The reason they were allowed to make this change is that it was a temporary change in the first instance.
I didn't
Zinchenko
know that.
Coming
Okay,
in.
so no Hutchinson then, that's for sure.
No.
And Doy, I know, was only on for 5 minutes, and his job was to run around and be a nuisance and close down. But he showed a turn of pace finally that we've been waiting for, didn't he? That we know he's got. So perhaps he'll come back fresh and make a difference. It's a game we've got to win or not lose, should I say?
Yeah.
Because I cannot. Please, if you're listening, Forest players, please understand we don't earn what you earn.
They're listening.
We don't earn what you earn. I cannot afford. Well, it's going to be very hard to afford another European trip in February. Give me a month off from it, please, so I can work hard and earn more money.
It's getting to that stage, isn't it, Kay, where it's crunch time, where they need to get the results to ensure they qualify in some form for the next phase, ideally.
I think we have qualified, haven't we?
I'm not sure it's guaranteed quite yet, but I may be wrong. But
I thought we were guaranteed top 24 now.
Well, they've got to be aiming for the top 8. They currently sit just outside, so they have to have aspirations to finish in that top 8. So he's got to find that balance, hasn't he, Kate, between finding a team that has got the ability to do that, but at the same time making sure enough players get a bit of a break and they're able to field a stronger team for Brentford. What would you do in his shoes? Because, I mean, that's why he gets paid the big bucks to make these decisions, Sean Dyche, but it's kind of crunch time, isn't it, for him?
Yeah. I would go strong. I would name as close to what started on Saturday as he possibly can, taking into account that, there are some that need to rest. And God, I hope he doesn't put Angus Gunn in goal. That's absolutely terrifying. No, I don't want him to do that at all.
Can't be worse than John.
Oh.
We were having this discussion on Door on Tour last night, and I think you always go with your strongest team, and you always play to win. And there is a real argument to say that the thing we still lack is consistency, obviously, and whether consistency will ever come this season remains to be seen. But we did put in a really good performance and get a really valuable point this weekend. If we got a win in Europe, that has got to inject some confidence to then take it to Brentford on Sunday. Yates, yes, absolutely Yates, because starting Yates isn't in any way weakening us, in my opinion. But some of those others, I would rather not see. I mean, like you say, hopefully they're listening. It's my birthday. I think you should let me pick.
Yeah, do it, Kate, do it.
No, I do. And I think, I'm not, obviously, the Premier League is always the priority. Of course it is. It absolutely is. You would never hear me arguing to the contrary. But we are out both the cups, the domestic cups. This is what we've got left. And I also think that Sean Dyche has got a little bit of something to prove. Doing well in this competition would certainly shut up some of the haters and some of the doubters. And I think that's got to be in his school of thought as well. So there are some that I would potentially rest, yes. But in general, I want to see a strong team go out there. And I want to see a similar performance, because it isn't a given. We are going to need to battle, and they've shown us that they can do that now. So get out there and do it. And I want to see Anderson. I want to see Anderson on Thursday.
You won't.
That's the thing. If we weren't out of both of the cups, I don't think we'd be all feeling this pressure to gain something out of Europe. Obviously, we still want it, but knowing that this is like, our last kind of bit of hope of, having something extra in addition to the Premier League.
That's the only thing we can win, isn't it?
Exactly, yeah, and that's the thing, and I think that's why we all didn't see the season, the pan out to what it has done. It could be a whole lot worse, but still, it's just having that bit of glimmer of hope to look at something other than the Premier League, isn't it?
Yeah, they are.
I don't want him to do what he did at Wrexham. Okay, I don't want this second half to be banging in all the players he should have started with and then having to win the game twice. I don't want that. There's got to be a better balance than that. There really has.
I mean, they are going to be playing Thursday, Sunday. Then they do have a bit of a break between Palace and Leeds on the Friday night. So obviously no midweek game that week, and then they've got another midweek game Wolves, and then they do have a weekend off because it's the Cup. So there is a little bit of a mini break coming. So on that basis, with that on the horizon, it is potentially an opportunity to have a bit of a rest, which is why I'm quite keen for them to put in a strong team as well, because that is going to be the best route to them qualifying for the next phase. So they are professional athletes after all. We're only in January into February, so it's not like it's going to be at the end of the season like it was last year when they were quite clearly knackered, and they're not at that stage yet. They are trained and paid to do this, so given the importance now we're at the business end of the group stages, I would quite like to see a strong team as well.
I think it will be strong, but I think we know that Savona, Morato, Louise and Yates are very likely to be starters. It's what you put around them as well, isn't it? Is the key there.
Yeah. So, Kate, Mollo, you're going, I believe. Would you like to quickly share your travel plans? And Kate, it's a very special trip for you as well, I believe.
So I fly out tomorrow night from Gatwick. So in fact, we'd be on the runway, probably not quite taken off this time tomorrow. So we land late, first night in Porto, and then move to Braga on the Wednesday. So I'm really looking forward to actually having a bit of time there, because I've done the last two, flying out on match day, coming home the next day. So I'm going to have a little wander around Braga and go and see if I can have a look at the stadium. They were doing stadium tours, but they're not doing them on the Wednesday. And it's a fascinating ground, isn't it? Like to look at. So I'm hoping to maybe have a little cheeky sneak in and a little bit of a look around there. And just enjoy the occasion, and it is, I know we talk about this a lot on this show, but I could never have imagined standing in Portugal watching Forest play in Europe on my birthday.
Is it literally on your birthday on Thursday?
Literally my birthday, and I've had many birthdays so far. I won't tell you quite how many, but I did not imagine that this was going to be how I was spending one of them. So I am very excited to be taking both of them and having this experience. And it's, come on guys, it's my birthday, come on.
Going
What
to
a birthday,
Braga,
Kate.
Listening, please go and buy Kate loads of drinks.
My question is not how many birthdays have you had, but how many birthdays have Forest ruined? Because being on August the 26th, I've had a fair few.
It used to be the Derby game. It used to always fall.
Oh, really?
My birthday. I don't know why, but it just did, and you always used to look for it on the fixtures. First fixture you looked for wasn't it? It was always on and around my birthday, quite often on it or around it. So that was always my birthday weekend, either ruined or absolutely made. So, but this is another level.
Okay, Mollo, what are your travel plans?
Much more boring, I'm afraid. The usual, keep the cost down, out on the morning of the game, drop our stuff at the hotel, pick up tickets, and then go and sample the local ambience probably in the square in Braga. Looks quite decent, to be fair. And then, because it's a late kick-off, back to Porto after the game for a kit, and then back the next day. So, not going to see too much of Braga, but I haven't seen too much of any of the other places, if I'm honest, apart from squares outside bars and things. I did see a bit of Seville, to be fair. I did a bit of Graz, but it's lots of. Yeah, I'm lying on. I saw lots of Amsterdam. We stayed there a bit longer, but yeah, I think this is our quickest turnaround. I fly in and out within 20.
Cool. Right, quick score prediction. Start with you, Chelsea.
Okay, I'm gonna go.
Kate.
If Sells is in goal, then I'm Forest. If Gunn is in goal, I don't know. No idea. No.
Have you ever seen him play?
2-0 Forest. Right, Mollo.
I'm just going to ask Kate, have you ever seen Angus Gunn play?
No.
Can't write him. He's a Scottish international keeper. You can't write him off. I'm going to go. I'm going to change slightly. If Morato. Say again?
Scottish goalkeepers. Isn't there a joke there about Scottish goalkeepers?
Oh, yeah. Alan Roth. Remember him? I'm going to say if Milenkovic and Murillo at least play a half each, then I'm going to say we win 1-0. If neither of them play, I'm going to say we lose 1-0.
Okay, I'm going for 0-0 as well.
Oh,
Yeah,
Point away
that's
from home.
probably a good shout as well.
Right, Kay, coming towards the end of the show now. Go
This is a
through any other
tough
business.
one.
We'll start with you, Chelsea.
Sorry. Quiz answers.
Chelsea, anything
Oh,
from
yeah.
you?
no, just want to see a great performance again on Thursday and an even better performance on Sunday, please. And a happy birthday to Kate as well.
Indeed. Mollo, anything from you?
Same, and also big shout out. I know this goes under the radar. You know, like yourself, I know you follow a minority sport in this country. Nottingham Panthers have won the equivalent of the UEFA Cup, which is staggering because they've now won it twice. And in terms of upsets, winning it once is massive compared. They're playing all these teams that have got players that go off to the Olympics and whatnot. So fair play. Just thought I'd give them a quick shout out. It's not a bad.
Yeah, why not?
Not
Why
a bad
not? Well done,
achievement.
Panthers.
And happy birthday to Kate.
Yeah. And lastly, Kate, anything from you plus the quiz answer as well, please? Because I haven't got a Scooby-Doo.
Okay.
I've got
business.
one.
Business. Just yeah. Let's have a good one.
Right. How many is there for the quiz answer? How many could I have come up with?
Well, there are only 3 that I could 100% confirm.
Okay, so I'm going to go. One I'm about 80% sure of, and that is that left back who's actually quite good in the championship, Yuri Ribeiro.
Yeah, he's Portuguese, wasn't
That's
he?
a guess because he was Portuguese. I don't know where we got him from though. And I've written down things like sure Carvalho didn't. I ca-
Gil Diaz.
Oh, I forgot about that little patch of Portuguese players.
Yeah, there was 3 of them. There was Carvalho,
Yeah.
Gil Diaz, and the other one.
But weren't they all from like Benfica youth team or something? That's
Yeah,
why I've ruled
yeah,
out
possibly.
Carvalho.
Absolutely right. Well done.
Oh, so there we go. So Ribeiro isn't.
Not that I could find. No. So Gil Diaz, David Carmo.
Really?
Yeah, but this is the one.
Hang on, wait, you the one in the squad.
Yeah,
Oh, in the squad.
I think I got this one.
go on then.
Only because my mate lives in Cannock and he was going on about him years ago and he's ended up at Forest and he's still at Forest. This is a long shot, but I know they bought him from Portugal. What's his face? Bolly. Basil
Oh,
Bolly.
Willy Bolly.
Willy Bolly. Yes.
Yeah, that was just lucky knowledge, that one. I'm a bit upset about Ribeiro though.
Yeah. So he played Braga B team and 2015, 2016, 25.
Oh, really?
Braga, then on to Porto, then on to Wolves and on to us. So yeah, Willy Bolly is the current one. The other 2 that I could 100% say played senior career at Braga and Forest were David Carmo and Gil Diaz. But yeah.
Right, that's it from us. We'll be back on later in the week where we shall have a review of Braga and look forward to a tricky great game at Brentford. Thanks for listening and bye for now.